This is a beginner friendly and very easy to follow tutorial. Hello guys, let's make this stylish dress together. If this is your first time of coming across my channel, thanks for stopping by. My name is Abigail. Please do well to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can see more of my videos. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. I'm happy to have you here again. If you like sewing tutorials like this, keep watching. Let's get into the video. For this tutorial, I'll be using 1.5 yard of crepe fabric, but if you are on the bigger side or you want yours longer, consider using 2 to 2.5 yard. And I won't be adding lining to my dress. Go ahead and add lining if you want. So I'll be drafting my pattern on this pattern paper before transferring to my fabric, and these are the measurements I'll be working with. The first thing to do is to draw a straight line which will serve as the starting line, and from there I'll take my vertical measurements. Now this dress is an off-shoulder bustier with strap, and the first thing I'll do is to determine how off I want it to be. I want it off by 6 inches, so I'll take out that 6 inches from all of my vertical measurements. Now I have placed my tape 6 inches on the starting line. Then I'll continue to take the measurements. My bust line 9.5 inches, my under bust 13.5, my waistline 16 inches, my hip line 26 inches, and the full length of this dress, which is 36 inches. Then I'll draw straight lines across the points. Again, this is the bust line, the under bust line, the waistline, the hip line, and the full length. On the bust line, I'll take my bust pan measurement divided by 2. My bust pan is 7 inches, divided by 2 is 3.5, and I'll measure that 3.5 inches on all the lines. Then I will connect the point into a straight line. On the waistline, I'll measure my dart. My dart width is 1 inch, so I'll measure ½ inch on each side of the straight line. And on the under bust line, I'll measure the same thing. Now from the waistline, I'll come down by 5 inches. That is the length I want for my dart. You can make yours longer, it's all fine. Then I'll connect the points. From the bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch. Then I will create a curve from that point towards the dart leg on the under bust line. The next thing to do is to tighten the overbust. To do that, I'll come to the starting line and measure my dart width, that is ½ inch on each side of the straight line. Then I'll connect each point to the 1 inch mark below the bust line. The next thing I'll do is to create my armhole curve. To get my armhole, I'll take out my off-shoulder measurements from my armhole measurement. My off-shoulder measurement is 6 inches, so I'll place the 6 inches on my starting line and mark my armhole measurement, which is 7.5 inches. And from that point, I'll draw a slant line towards the starting line like so. Now let's take the round measurement. On the armhole line, I'll measure my bust circumference divided by 4. Then I'll replace the dart measurement. And on the waistline, I'll measure my waist circumference divided by 4. And also replace the dart measurement. My hip circumference divided by 4 is 10 inches. Then I'll add extra 1 inch to that 10 inches, making 11 inches, and mark it on the hem line. Then I'll connect the points together. And when cutting on my fabric, I'll add the sewing allowance. For the neck depth, I'll go a little below the starting line. But if you want yours deeper, you can go below ½ or 1 inch from the starting line. The last thing to do before cutting is to measure the side dart. So from the bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch. And I'll connect that point to the bust point line. So guys, this is all for the drafting, and these parts are no longer needed. I'll go ahead now to cut. for the side dart, I'll cut through the line and place the paper on each other. Then I'll use tape to hold it together. Now this is the center front and this is the side front. I will set this aside to work on the back pattern. For the back pattern, I already draw out my starting line and I also added extra 1.5 inches as zipper allowance. Now I will proceed to take my vertical measurements. Still taking out the 6 inches for the off shoulder, I will only measure the waist, hip and full length line, and for the waistline it will be 1 inch shorter than the front waistline. The front waistline is 16 inches and the back waistline will be 15 inches, and this is because of the side dart. So the back pattern will be 1 inch shorter than the front pattern. The hip line is 25, not 26, and the full length will be 35, not 36 inches. Again, this is the waistline, the hip line, and the full length line. The next thing to do is to measure my bust span divided by 2, which is 3.5 inches. I'll mark the same thing on the starting line, the hip line as well as the full length line. Then I'll connect the point into a straight line. On the waistline, I'll measure my dart width, which is ½ inch on each side of the straight line. And from that waistline, I'll come down by 5 inches. Then I'll connect my dart. Next thing to do is to measure my armhole. I'll measure it the same way I measured the front armhole, 7.5 inches, and I'll measure it all through. Then connect the point into a straight line. Now I'll take my round measurement. On the armhole line, I'll measure my bust circumference divided by 4. Then replace the dart measurement. And on the waistline, I'll measure my waist circumference divided by 4 and also replace the dart measurement. My hip circumference divided by 4 is 10 inches, and I will add extra 1 inch to that 10 inches and mark the measurements on the hem line. Then I'll connect the points together. On the waist side of the zipper allowance, I'll go out by ½ inch. This is to eliminate zipper bulge. And I'll also go in by ½ inch. Then connect the point to the straight line. I will connect this point as well. So when fixing my zipper, I'll fix it in a slant form and not in a straight form. And this is all for the drafting of this back pattern. I will cut now. This is the center back and this is the side back. And in case you're wondering how the side back and the side front is going to align, this is it. So far the side dart is closed, it will definitely align, so you don't have to worry about joining them. The next thing to do is to cut out where the side gathers will be. I'll tape my front pattern together. At the hem, I'll go in by 5 inches, and from the hip line, I'll go up by 5 inches. Now from that point, I'll go in by 1 inch, which is not entirely necessary. You can just try to make a curve like so. I will connect the points at the hem to this line and also blend the curve, then cut it out. I will separate the center and side front. Then go ahead to place the cutout on the side back. Trace out the shape and also cut it out. And this is what the back pattern looks like now. The next thing to do is to transfer each of this pattern to my fabric. I will add sewing allowance as I cut this front pattern. I folded my fabric into two before placing each pattern. So I'll be having two pieces of the side front. I will notch the underbust area and go ahead to cut the back pattern. I also folded my fabric into two before placing each pattern, and I made sure to add the sewing allowance except for the zipper allowance side. Now that we are done cutting, the next thing to do is to start stitching. I'll mark the wrong side of my fabric so as not to get confused. I will pick a piece from each side. Make sure the right side are facing, then pin it together. I will also pin these two together, and I'll be stitching using the allowance I added while cutting. I will place the side front on the center front, right side facing, and I'll trace out the shape using the sewing allowance I added to it. After joining the center and side front, this is what the front piece looks like now. I also opened up the seam and ironed it. And this is what the back pieces looks like. The next thing to do is to cut out facing to turn the neckline. This is the piece for the facing. It is on fold, and I'll place my main fabric on it, trace out the neckline, and determine how long I want it to be. I'll place the right side of the facing on the right side of the back piece, and I'll be stitching using 1/2 inch measurements. I already cut out the piece for the front facing, and I'll be stitching it the same way. After stitching the facing to the main fabric, I top stitched on it, turned it to the wrong side, and used hemming gum to hold it down, and this is what it looks like. For the front piece, I did the same thing, but I didn't use hemming gum to hold it down. The next thing to do is to close the side. I'll place the back piece on the front piece, right side facing, and I will use the front facing to turn the upper side like so. I'll pin it to show us what it will look like after stitching. I will go over to my sewing machine now to stitch using the allowance I added while cutting. After closing the sides, the next thing to do is to fix the zipper. I'll mark the zipper allowance and also mark where the zipper will stop. From the top, I'll come down by 13 inches. And from that point, I'll measure my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. I will stitch from here all the way down before fixing my zipper. I will also measure the 1.5 inches here. Remember I said the zipper will be fixed in a slant form, and this is where it will stop. So guys, I have fixed the zipper and you can see that it is neatly done. The next thing to do now is to cut out flay that will be gathered here. But before then, I will measure what I have there. This is 16.5 inches. I already folded this fabric into two. I'll fold it again, but this time around in a triangular way, so I have it in 4 folds. I will make the length 17 inches instead of the 16.5 I measured earlier. I will place my tape from the top of the triangle and measure down to this point. I have 6 inches there, and I'll measure the same thing at this side. Now the total measurement here is 4.5 inches. Next, I'll measure around the 17 inches length, then I'll cut it out. I will notch the center fold and open it up to show us how it will be attached to the dress. I will fold it back together and cut out a little part at this top because where I want to attach it is cuffy. I will pin the center of the flare to the line at the side, like so. Then I will pleat it round. You can decide to gather yours, it's all fine. I will go over to the sewing machine to stitch it round, and this is what it will look like after stitching. After attaching the flare to the two sides of my dress, this is what it looks like. The next thing to do is to cut out the strap for the sleeve. There's a piece on the shoulder that holds the strap together, and I'll be using this pattern paper to illustrate it. The length is 3 inches. While the width is 8 inches, that is 4 inches on fold. I will cut this out. I will fold this again, and from the base I'll go up by ½ inch. Then connect the point back to the top like so. I will cut it out now and show us what it looks like. I'll place this on my fabric to cut, and I'll add sewing allowance on all sides. I cut out 4 pieces because I want to line it, and this is how I will stitch. I will stitch it round and leave this part to turn it right out. The straps are 4 and I already stitched 2. These are the remaining 2, although I have 4 pieces, and this is because I will join 2 to become 1 to have my desired length of 40 inches. Your length does not have to be as long as mine, okay? And the width is 1.5. I will go over to the sewing machine to stitch the remaining 2. After stitching the shoulder piece, this is what I have, and this is how it will look on the shoulder. I stitched the remaining strap, and this is the 4 altogether. Next thing to do now is to add eyelet because the strap will pass through the eyelet. So from this joining line, I'll mark 1 inch, and then I'll mark the same thing at the other side. There should be a space of about ½ inch from the top of your dress to where your eyelet will be, okay? There's also eyelet on the 2 shoulder pieces, so I'll mark where I want it. And after marking at the front, I'll turn my dress and mark the same thing at the back. This is what I have after fixing the eyelet. The next thing to do now is to insert the strap into the eyelet. I'll first fold one of the strap into 2. I will insert the 2 ends into the eyelet of one of the shoulder piece. I don't know how to explain this part, but just watch me. I will also insert the ends into the eyelet on my dress. And at this point, you can tie your strap whichever way you want. I will insert another strap into the second eyelet on the shoulder piece. Then I will fix it to the back of my dress. When you are done fixing your sleeve and it's not firm on your shoulder, you can easily adjust the strap and retie it. I will fix the remaining strap to the shoulder piece and attach it to my dress, and I will also hem the down part. And with that, we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. If you find this video helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you are yet to, and I'll see you in my next one.